In 1997, 3 college wrestlers died within 6 weeks of each other due to the agonizing process known as cutting weight. This process includes riding stationary bikes, wearing several layers of clothing, refusing liquids, and sometimes even wearing rubber suits that keep the body from cooling off. These wrestlers lost their lives due to the pressure of losing weight in order to be a better athlete, but they don't stand alone. There are a few of many athletes that have turned to this unhealthy dieting for the sake of their sport. This excessive dieting most definitely isn't only a wrestler's problem anymore. It has spread into swimming, basketball, dancing, diving, cheerleading, figure skating, and track. The cause of weight loss is a variety of factors that are dealt with differently by each individual person, but it has an extremely deleterious effect on the body, and even more importantly, the mind. Has someone ever told you that you have the perfect build for a certain sport? Have you ever heard of anyone who looks the part of the sport they're playing? If you're 6'8" and 285 pounds, you're not going to be asked to join the track team, but football coaches would surely turn their heads when you pass by. The generalizations about what an athlete should look like when they're playing a sport have attributed to the growth of eating disorders and rapid weight loss. Gymnasts, who are generally assumed to have a physique characterized by lean muscle, have had the most trouble with the generally expected image of them. In 1994, a study showed that 59% of women in the sport have eating disorders. This statistic shows how image of a poster boy athlete contributes to the eating disorders of today. Many times people feel like they are being judged when they are performing in front of a crowd of people, and this causes them to try and look perfect. One major cause of rapid weight loss in athletics is that sometimes there are actually judges who choose the winner, and because of this, many athletes try to emulate the appearance of a professional at their sport to gain an edge in their ratings. Problems with extreme dieting may begin to please not just the judges, but coaches as well. Coaches who give dieting tips to their young athletes might make a bigger impression than they had thought. These athletes who are given tips on dieting from coaches often take the diet to the extreme because of simple misunderstanding. One of the largest and most of cutting weight occurs in sports in which there are weight classes, such as wrestling, boxing, and mixed martial arts. These sports focus on one-on-one combat, and because of this, many athletes try and gain the advantage by going down a weight class so that they have a size advantage over their opponents. The problem with this again is that many young athletes take it to the extreme and lose up to 15 or so pounds in one day. Although it seems as if that would turn anybody away from these sports, many of these combatants enjoy the feeling they get from weight cutting. 2007 Ivy League Rookie of the Year wrestler Adam Fry says in an interview about cutting weight, "Cutting weight is just a way to bend the rules to someone's advantage, and it's just an accepted part of the sport. It's almost a tradition of the sport. A lot of wrestlers pride themselves on being mentally tough and being able to cut the weight, being disciplined. It's just the nature of the beast. You sign up to wrestle and you want to be good and compete at the highest levels, you're just going to have to cut the weight." So if the athletes don't care, why should anybody else? The answer is that it has serious health implications in the long run that most young athletes are too short-sighted and uneducated to see, and they need to be protected from themselves. Eating disorders and weight cutting are not just dangerous because they make the athlete hungry and thirsty. There are some serious side effects to the unusual sacrifice of food and water in the name of sports. One eating disorder commonly found in athletes is bulimia, with which there are repeated periods of binging, eating as much as possible, and purging, getting the food out of the body before digestion. The other common eating disorder is anorexia, which is basically just self-starvation. To some, eating disorders may seem to be just a little problem with food that athletes need to overcome, but they prove each year to be more than just a little problem. Most medical researchers would concur that eating disorders have the highest rate of deaths out of all mental illnesses, and that does not sound like just a little problem with food. Over the past few years, there have been several deaths in athletics, including a nationally ranked female gymnast and a ballet company member due to eating disorders. Those are just the deaths that the newscasters report on. There have been many other athletes who have passed on because of their desire to be great at a sport and look great while competing in it. Many people think of an eating disorder as a white girl's disease because of the conception that a large amount of that group are turning to eating disorders. It is true that a large portion of the people with eating disorders are white females, but lately more males and minorities are beginning to develop eating disorders as well. Since eating disorders are not present until the weight is lost and can linger on for one's entire life, they have become an extremely serious problem. For almost all people who have eating disorders, no matter how thin they become, their self-perceptions continue to lower. This usually ends with serious therapy or a doctor's visit, because no matter how much weight they lose, they will never think of themselves in a positive way. Binge eating and purging, or not eating at all for extended periods of time, can become a habit that can mentally destroy a person. Men with eating disorders have even more trouble because generally, men are too proud to even seek help for themselves. This is because, according to Suzanne Kudzie, People generally associate these eating disorders with homosexuals and bisexuals, which has made it more difficult for men to seek treatment. Straight men are such a proud group generally that they cannot deal with having a doctor or psychiatrist think they are anything but straight men. This mental aspect of eating disorders makes finding and helping victims of this disease even more difficult. It has been claimed by many that weight loss is just a part of the great world of sports that so many of us live in, the nature of the beast, as Mr. Fry put it. However, the aspect of losing weight in sports has led to ended careers, eating disorders developed, and lives taken. Sports are a great invention of mankind, and it has been said that if one doesn't put 100% effort into them, then why even compete? The answer is that sports were meant for enjoyment, competition, and the growth of us as humans, and they have succeeded in doing so. Taking them seriously is a great mindset to have and benefits many of us in the long run. But what is the cost? Should people really be willing to give up their happiness, clear mind, and even lives to exceed beyond limitations of something that they generally will not be doing past 30 years old? Many would say the risk is worth the reward, but is it possible that a few trophies put on a shelf isn't really worth one's life? After 3 wrestlers died in 6 weeks from cardiac arrest, kidney failure, and heat stroke, all in the name of making weight, it was evident that something in the wrestling world had to change. The National College Association of Athletics realized that this couldn't just be taken as the nature of the beast anymore, and so they made a rule change. The NCAA declared that all weigh-ins must be taken the day of the competition and not the day before, as had previously been the case. This was done to keep wrestlers from severely dehydrating or overworking themselves in order to preserve energy for the actual competition. The NCAA realized how serious weight loss had become, and it's about time everyone else does as well. After all the years of sports, all the weigh-ins and weigh-outs, and all the lives wrecked because of weight loss for athletics, the world needs to know that this endless cycle of eating disorder development and repercussions must be stopped. The belittling remarks of parents and coaches need to be identified and brought to light. The weight cutting in rubber suits hours before a competition needs to be cracked down on. Most of all, the decrease of food and water intake, in order to keep the numbers on the scale low, needs to stop immediately. Though these sacrifices may seem like a part of the sport, they don't have a place in normal life, and they could lead to serious physical and mental health problems. Sports are creation of people who were just bored and needed something to do with their spare time. We should just keep them that way. The wrestler on the exercise bike, mouth dry from lack of food and water, would certainly agree.